Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the BlkWmnAnimator, come back to you with another video. And in this video, me and Andre Rodriguez will be interviewing animation legend Leo Sullivan. So, Mr. Sullivan, just wanted to start off with where are you from?
Geez, where am I from? Originally or recently?
Whatever your answer to the question is, however you want to answer.
I say born and raised.
Okay. I was an Air Force kid, so I was all over the country. I was born in Lockhart, Texas, a little town outside of San Antonio, located between two Burma shave signs. So you guys don't even know what that is, do you?
I'm lost. Like what?
Burma shave signs used to be signs along the highway about a mile apart that were commercials. That was the early commercials.
Oh,
and
wow.
They gave you a little piece of the message of the commercial, and they were usually in rhyme. And man, you couldn't help to get to the next post to read what the next sentence was. Burma shave, look it up.
That's kind of deep. That's what they do on YouTube now, right? They drop little clips of an interview, little tiny little clips until they get to the whole interview.
Same process. But
Wow.
then you had to be driving down the highway.
Wow.
So what was your relationship with art and animation in your childhood?
Well, I would go to the movies and see all these cartoons. And I thought it was little people running around in costumes doing it. And then I started doing some research, and I was in high school then. And then I said, what is this? And I started researching. And I said, hey, this is fantastic. And then my mother encouraged me to do things, and I started sending off to letters to a few companies that were around, and Disney being one of them. And they sent me back this little packet, and I was just so excited. You know how that is when you start to get your first hook in.
Oh, man. It's
like a fix.
Yeah, definitely. When I saw my first model in a shot, yeah, it was a surreal feeling. Yeah.
So, and as a result of that, I went when I got out of high school. We were in the state of Washington, and we left there. And when my dad was transferred, he was in the Air Force, back to Riverside, California, March Air Force Base, and all that. And I went to Chaffee High School, studied art as my major and business as my second. And then I went to school.
Smart.
Took a lot of art classes and everything, and then started going. Then I went to Chouinard Art Institute, which is now the Art Center, which I think changed to what is it now? Cal Arts. Yeah, it's now Cal Arts. So it's gone through its revolution. Development. So I went there, and then I started knocking on doors in the animation industry, and I got in. At the time, I was one of.
Okay.
I had a question about did growing up in the military and moving around, did you feel that helped you with kind of getting into the art, in the world of art and animation? Was that an advantage, or is it something that was it an obstacle?
No, I learned a lot by traveling around the country, like to New York and Texas and different places, Washington D.C. Washington State, Moses Lake, Washington, where I graduated from high school in 1958. So all of that was part of the growth.
That's amazing.
So, when you got into animation, I think I've heard you say there were 4 other Black people that you knew of in animation.
That I knew of.
Jesus.
But then
Can you name them?
When I did some research, I found that there were 6.
Do you know their names?
At the time, it was Frank Braxton. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of him? Either one of
through some I have, yeah.
Floyd Norman, my
I heard of him.
longtime friend for almost years or so. Who else? Bob Go, and there were some other people that were coming. Oh, and Jackie Banks, a black girl. They worked in the studio. I worked my first studio. She was there. That's where I met her. And we worked off and on at various studios over the years. And,
And if people look up Bob Go, that's GOE, just to let you know.
Yeah, Bob Go's Joey. Yeah. Yeah, Bob
So,
is a good animator. Yeah.
so when you got in, so how did you get your start in animation? That first experience.
My first experience. But I always made my own films. I made a film about Christopher Columbus. Well, actually, in college, at Cape Junior College, down in Ontario area, Claremont, I made a film. I was trying to copy a Disney film, of Bambi, because I was so enthralled with that. And so I did this little 3-minute film. And that was my sample reel of going around. That's how I got into Chenard, with that reel. And then later years, when I went around with my the other film, it was about a little 3-minute film in rhyme, almost like a rap film of the day, about Christopher Columbus. And the film basically ends that there's a dialogue back and forth between the character and telling the story about how the Earth is round, and that's what Chris thought. But at the end of my film, the Earth was square, and he fell off the edge. That was the payoff there.
I dig that. Yeah, get him out of here.
No, I ran out of film.
The resources, man, right? When you run out of resources, you got to be creative.
That's right.
No doubt. So the six that you knew, the other six of us that were in the industry, were y'all in the same vicinity, or were you scattered in different companies?
Yeah, we were in different companies, except for Jackie Howard. We worked at the same company, and Floyd was at Disney's, and Frank Braxton came to work for a little while. I used to do his assistant work because he was kind of mentoring me, and then he left there because he went on the other studios and offered him better deals and everything. And so I was left there and been mentored by some of the old great animators from Warner Brothers and Disney and that sort of thing, and it was quite an experience. I learned a lot, and that was that's kind of.
How did it feel to have? How did it feel to have another one of us, like in the same room, in this, in the same environment?
Well, technically,
because I know when I see my folks, I'm like, yes,
Well, I guess in my background, I was kind of taught, kind of like to be a little white boy,
right?
So I didn't have any feelings about the black and white thing. I didn't find out about all that until later, because I got into my career when I saw certain obstacles or hurdles I had to have, like, competition, artist egos, and all that kind of stuff. So just when I saw you on another interview, and I said, "Boy, same old, same old." But anyway,
yeah, pretty much.
It was great. I mean, I didn't have any. Actually, that was a problem because I was so bodacious and I guess you might say a little arrogant, and so I didn't have any fears like that.
That actually it seems like if you didn't have that in your mind going in, that could actually help with better navigating that stuff. Because when there's a fight coming, you're going to be a little bit more apprehensive. You're going to be a little bit more guarded, right? So if you don't have that in your mind, you can kind of be a little bit more carefree.
Well, sometimes you guys have to forget, when people develop legacies, while that's happening, all those are just jobs. So you're working every day. So you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about trying to get your footage out, trying to make the drawings look correct or whatever.
True.
That applies to the growth of the job.
So
That's true.
Dan Haskett mentioned to me that a few decades ago there was a meetup at a soul food restaurant where almost every black person in animation had came.
By then, I was almost like, man, I guess that was kind of 20 years into my career. The
Yeah.
Dan Hackett and all those guys, and what is the other? Byron Bonds and God, the Ron Husbands, all those guys kind of showed up at a later time. The Bruce Smiths. I gave Bruce Smith his first job. He never
Nice.
talks about that, but I gave him his first job in animation, and he worked at a place called Tom Carter Productions. And I gave him his first job in animation. He was a good animator coming from, at the time, Cal Arts.
Yeah.
And that's why he rose on to Bebe's Kids and all that kind of stuff, and Proud Family and that growth. But I gave him his first job, and I'm kind of proud of that.
Cal Arts, man. Cal Arts be putting a lot of talent out. I know so many people in the industry that have been to Cal Arts.
Yeah.
I need to go over there and take a peek at it.
So, like, as compared to, I know you didn't have the wherewithal to notice, being one of four, you thought four at the time, but it was actually six. And then fast forward to that soul food restaurant. Was it a good feeling to see all those people in the animation industry? That growth of black people in the animation industry?
I have an answer to that, which I always use. That was more competition.
I've actually said that before. I said that, sometimes some people might look at that as, they could be like, whoa,
But
now now it might be harder for me to get in the door.
Yeah. But yes, that was a great feeling. I got photographs of that whole thing.
Oh, man.
We got to see those, bruh.
Everybody was a lot younger.
And we got to see those photographs, man. We got to make one of those into a shirt,
Scan it in.
For real. Man, please. Get those, Deborah.
Roll by the house.
Right?
So,
how long did that meeting last when y'all got together at that spot?
Well, what we were trying to do is bring the guys together. It happened on 2 occasions where we thought we should. That was kind of like during the latter part of the 60s and going into the 70s. And so we figured that we should have some kind of coalition of the black artists to be able to just pretty much what you guys are trying to do these days, to be able to have a voice. And we don't know what that was. Everybody that worked, some of them will get paid more than others or had higher positions. But, it wasn't the same issue. Most of the artists, how can I put it politely, were kind of docile. As long as they were working and doing drawings and being paid for that, what greater job they have than that? So I rocked the boat.
Yeah, there's that term, rocking the boat. I stay rocking it though.
Right. I was about to say that.
Yeah, I stay rocking. I don't mean to. People ask me questions and I answer them. That's all I can do.
One of the things was that I always felt like I was outside of the industry after my first 20 years in it. I've been in the industry over 50-something years, 60 years, off and on, directly. I kind of like went into my own thing over the years, back in the 70s, 80s and everything. Started my own company because I always felt like, hey, this is great. But now that I got a certain amount of professional experience, it was time to go out and see what the real world is like. And that real world is when I grew up.
Okay, now let's start right there. Right when your eyes got big.
In other words, I wasn't a white boy anymore.
Right. And
it's always interesting when black people become black.
What was
They
the
don't
first
talk about that.
experience?
They don't talk about that.
What was the
Yeah.
first experience? What was the first instance where you said, "Oh, this is how it is"?
That never came up. Nobody ever called me any names to my face.
Mm-hmm.
There was never any confrontation. Uh, the biggest time that any of that happened was when I was subcontract as an individual. And then you go in and get work and you're competing with other subcontractors. And then you get these little digs in you, like maybe your work wasn't as great as the other guys. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how can I put it? Like my friend Floyd sometimes, say, why are you guys insulting us? We're doing this shit just like you're doing it. You know?
Real
So,
talk.
you know what I mean? It's like, so that was just kind of one thing when you're around a bunch of artists, it's probably something that goes beyond the race thing, and that's the competition of just being an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Artists compete all the time because they look at each other and what they do and they say, oh, what a skill level, or what a I can do better than that, or I wish I could do that. And, and that's a constant competitive things. They're no different than any other artist, you know,
Mm-hmm.
competing. So when you're in a pool of artists, no matter what the nationalities are across the board, there's still that competition factor. When I was running studios in China and in Japan, it was the same thing.
Humble brag there.
Yeah. Same. It's the same thing with the Chinese animators versus the Philippine animators and the Koreans. Man, you don't know how many fights I had to settle a confrontation because one person's group films turned out better than somebody else, or et cetera, et cetera. So that goes on all over the world.
So
Competition.
you and Floyd Norman co-founded Vignette Films Incorporated. So where you produce educational films on Black history and did contract projects such as Hey, it's Fat Albert. So what brought on the decision to own your own, like start your own studio, and what made you concentrate on Black history?
Because that time there was Black history films out of any quantity. As I researched the market, I was always kind of like the business component of the company and everything, and researched the stuff. And I said, hey, this seems like an opportunity. So it was no big deal for me to get on the plane and go to conventions, book conventions, and content. At that time,
Mm-hmm.
content was books and videos, 16 millimeter films, and all that kind of stuff that was sold to libraries and institutions. So I said, hey, there's a place for me to go and do some research. So I would go, I'd call companies up, make out proposals, and go in with my budgets and titles of what I want to do. And in most cases, I got the job. Independent.
Making your own path.
That's right. Carving it out. What was the difference? Was there any difference when you were running studios in China? What were the difference between there as opposed to running studios here? Because I'm pretty sure you ran some stuff here too in the States. What were the biggest differences between the two?
In China, the Philippines, my boss is here. Let me do what I wanted to do to get the job done.
Oh, that sounds nice. That sounds nice. So that was in China.
Whatsoever. I could call them and say, I need another 50,000. I need another 100,000. I need a half a million. They would send it to me.
Whoa. Okay, so that was China. And then so here in the States, you are out of red tape.
Never get it.
Wow. Jesus. That is a big difference. Were there any other, because that sounds like financial, were there any other differences? Were like cultural differences?
Yes, it was at the time when I was in studio in Shenzhen, China. Excuse me. People in the studio, they knew two Black people that they had pinned on the walls. That was Michael Jackson and Leo Sullivan.
Damn, I heard that.
So that's Does that answer that question?
That does, pretty much. Grand opening, grand closing. Okay.
Right.
After living in South Korea, I can vouch for the Michael Jackson thing.
I've never been in an area where, you know, black folks are looked at in that manner in, you know, in big corporate settings. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We're usually in the background.
In Asian society, when you begin to get older, or you know more, or whatever you call it, and your skill levels are that they give respect to your knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the U.S., they don't do that. The young folks today try to stifle people like me.
Yeah,
they don't know that they got an old jewel sitting there.
Yeah.
A gem.
Real talk. That's why I'm here right now, because I know they
And there's a hierarchy. Because
Yeah.
even when I was learning Korean language, there was a hierarchy to how you spoke to people. Like you spoke to people older than you this way, you spoke to people younger than you this way. So it's really important in their cultures.
That's right. That's right. And so I didn't have any problem. I remember once in the Philippines when I was running a studio there. In China, I ran a studio for about a year with about 500 to 600 people. Most of my supervisors were from Taiwan, and because they had more Western connection as far as English and those artistic things that we wanted done that they could interpret to the regular People's Republic animators and all that sort of thing. And in the Philippines, it was kind of like pretty much the same thing, but they could speak English and had more Western connection. I remember once in China, I said, I got a surprise for all my animators. I brought them out, in about 30 of them. And I said, you're going to see a film. It was Roger Rabbit. I had it sent over to China, and they sat there and they were just looking at that, and they were amazed. And of course, we had to stop it every once in a while, so our Mandarin and Cantonese interpreters could interpret it to the guys watching it. But the action of the movie kind of explained it to them, and I thought that was great.
That's amazing. No, I'm just listening to the history of how in that setting, you were kind of building the culture at the studio, as opposed to over here, culture's set upon us, and we just have to deal with it and navigate through it.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages I have. My bosses were sweethearts. They just say, "You get it done." Can you imagine working on 30 half-hour films at one time?
No, that sounds like a whole lot.
I've done that. Now, by the end of my 2 years, 1 year in the Philippines, 1 year in China, I was pretty stressed out.
Understandably.
Yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah, when I was in Korea, I was like, I'm glad I did this in my 20s.
Right.
Yeah, you get the message. So
when I was in Korea, I met a guy, Carl Linton, and he was the director of the Cleveland show. He was a black guy. He was Jamaican, but he's from Canada. And he told me about an illustration, like a cartoon strip from back in the day, where they had a cartoon strip where it was a picture of America and all these kind of arrows going to California, where American animators tend to go to California for stuff. And then he said, like, I don't know if it was just Canada, but it was like the Canadian animators, the arrows went out to the world. So what can you speak to, our propensity as Americans to kind of think of Disney, and then other countries are like trying to spread around the world and get jobs in animation?
The U.S., all the big companies in the U.S. is a thing of market.
Mm-hmm.
What they do is they kind of carve it up of the big guys like the Netflixes and the Disneys and the Amazons and everything. They think big. And because they think big, that's why the young artists and people who want to get into the field have such a hard time. You know, when you think of your great idea or whatever, your little pilot, 2-minute pilot or 1-minute pilot, and you first thing you think about is going knock on Netflix's door. What you don't realize is that that line stretches about 35 miles.
Real talk.
You know what I mean? So, and then that's when if you get to the door, and then to sit down with somebody to say, hey, we like what you're doing. And in most cases, what I always say to young people, yeah, your idea is great, but producing it, that's another whole story.
Yep, another animal completely. Jeez. I'm hearing all this knowledge and I'm like, am I really, I'm gonna stay in my cubicle and just keep modeling.
No, to have ambition is the thing that makes it grow. See, part of the problem with all the young animators that I've seen on some of these things when I watch them talk and I just listen and I say, is that you gotta go out there and if you can and do it on your own and form coalitions, working with together as people to build your own industry. Just think if we collectively got together and we can be, meaning little groups, but our mission is the same. Why would you have to go knock on those doors?
You definitely wouldn't.
And it's more possible today.
That's right.
So,
absolutely.
To go back to Vignette Films, I don't know if I'm misremembering this, but did you guys ever film some riots?
Yeah. When the Watts riot, or the uprising, they called it in the community, took place back in the 60s, I had a Bolex camera that Floyd had, and I bought from Roy Disney. He had it up for sale on the flipping wall. And I said, hey, let's get that camera. I was always trying to get a Bolex camera, a 16mm camera. That was like, geez, that was my dope. You know, I had to get that. So we bought the camera.
Just to let you know, even though I'm a youngin, when I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, our first quarter, we used Bolex cameras.
Yeah, they were great cameras. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But what they did at the time, but anyway, so Floyd and I said, hey, you know, let's go out there to put some footage, get some footage for one of our historical films. So it's great to be young. We went out there in the middle of the riot and chasing people and photographing them burning down stores and all kind of stuff. And then we came back to when the National Guard came in, we went to where they were camped out before they came into the city and filmed them all gathered and everything. And then they, at the time, the networks called people who did freelance like that stringers. In other words, we're like somebody who went out and got footage that they couldn't get. It's almost like what they do today. All the news programs basically is iPhone footage.
Yeah, getting stuff from social media.
That's right. Yep. They don't have to go out with teams all over the world getting stuff now, and then they can download it and people can broadcast from home. Think about that. That's pretty fantastic technology. Even what we're doing right now is a fantastic technology. But anyway, so we went out and filmed that and took it to ABC or NBC, one of those, and sold it. And they bought it on the spot. And then I started looking at it and I said, well, gee whiz, Floyd, look at that. People are getting killed. You know? I says, then they wanted us to go out again. And I said, no. And so that's that story about the filming.
Yeah,
Can you tell the story about you guys breaking into your? Yeah. Can you tell the story about you guys breaking into your office?
Boy, you
breaking into your office.
You saw the documentary, huh?
Yeah.
Well, here's what happened. We had a business on Western Avenue, Western and Olympic at the time. We were in the same building with a guy who became mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Tom Bradley. And there was a black lady who became a supervisor of LA County. Yvonne Brathwaite did our corporate papers. So we ended up, she recommended building up some offices, and we moved in there. And we started developing these films for various companies like McGraw-Hill, Doubleday, all that sort of thing, and independent distribution companies. A lot of the book publishing, because they were trying to get into their 16 millimeter film, and there just weren't no black people doing anything. We were an 8A franchise company under the U.S. government, and in the country there were only two. There was one on the West Coast, which is our Vignette Multimedia, me, and there was one on the East Coast, a guy that was doing a lot of stuff with the PBS when PBS was kind of getting started. So we were the two companies that were producing stuff at the time. And how can I say? Well, it didn't go so well for a while, and couldn't pay the rent, and the IRS came on us because of back taxes in the business. As I always, you look at it now, you say, that's back taxes. We didn't make any money, so what do we owe taxes for? But that was the period when the IRS came after anybody that was behind, and they really did some horrible things till they were reined in by Congress and everything. But anyway, they locked us out of our office. I said, Floyd, we gotta do something. And then they had the locked doors all locked, but we knew how to get in. That's what we did. We got in. But here's to show you where we were as artists. We had all that valuable equipment in there, and we stole the film. Well, I guess we didn't really steal it. We took it. We took the film, 16 millimeter film, and animation paper, and we went to a restaurant and kept our business going.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Gotta find a way, man.
Papers and pencils and leave the cameras.
Yeah, that's right. Floyd and I, we talk about that all the time. I say, we were fools, weren't we? He said, no, we were just young.
Hey, as long as you got, something to put the talent down on, that's all you need, right?
That's what I always said. I've done that many times.
Paper and pencil. That's it. And you good.
That's right. Sometimes working with the computer, you say, why do I got to go through all these damn steps? I just get a stack of sheet of paper and it's done.
Hey, Mr. Sullivan, some of us just ain't that good. That's what it comes down to.
And then you go and you talk to people, and then they say, well, now to be an animator, think about this, to be an animator now, you got to know about 15 programs, and then you got to draw, and then you got to, really what they're doing is they're hiring about 10 classifications all in one person and paying you peanuts for doing all that work. And they got a pool of talent to pull from, which they really are doing is they're just raping your skills.
Real talk. I agree with that 100%. That's they just at Blue Sky, they just all the stuff that's going on in Blue Sky, the changes and whatnot. Yeah, they just a couple of people that are the OGs, wound up leaving, and it's like, man, getting rid of the OGs is like that's getting rid of the essence of any company or any any environment. You know what I mean? But these people with the suit and ties on, they don't listen. They ain't paying attention.
Well, no, we got to remember now. In our animation industry, most of the studios at the time that I came in were owned by prior Disney or Warner Brothers animators, like Bill Hammond, Joe Barbera, Bob Clampett. I worked with him at the Snowball Studios on the old Beanie and Cecil shows and all those kinds of things. And they were all animators in that era. So they had a compassion with the artists that worked for them because they had come through the ranks and had that emotional contact. But then the suits showed up.
Yep.
When the suits showed up, the whole dynamics began to change into what it is today. So the suits know more than the guys who are actually making the film. But all they are is, and I saw this back in the early 60s, 70s. when I was doing some stuff for like the Transformers and all that with Marvel, and all the new producers coming in. All they did were usually they were production managers,
Mm-hmm.
and while a lot of ladies became producers, well, at the time the ladies couldn't be producers. They came in and they were uh, managers, production managers, and that was their entree into the field because they kept track of all the stuff. So when the producers needed to have information about how to get the shows out, they were the go-to. So that's how they rose in the industry. Uh, the producers and what have you, doing their thing. So yeah, when the suits came in, then the dynamic changed, and then technology showed up, and then that changed the whole dynamic. And
Changed
then
a whole lot of stuff,
then we are where we are today.
which is a whole lot of red tape now. We got so much. It's kind of weird. We got some red tape on some things, but other things, with the internet, being in every household, and it's, programs are more accessible now. More people can kind of do their own thing, but to get to that next level, there is a lot of red tape you got to go through unless you have a good coalition of people that you can trust that are working together. That being said, do you work with a group of people now that you trust? Like, do you have a core group of people today? Solo. No, I'm solo.
Here's the problem with when groups of people come together. Their passion, their dreams, and everything is why they come together. But the problem that they have is they stay together unless they're really, really dedicated, and the jobs are really split up in what they're going to do as responsibility to contribute to the overall effort. Is jealousy or one-upmanship, or somebody knows something somebody else doesn't know that's in the group, and then you start seeing the groups fall apart. That's why it's so difficult to do that. So that means that either you go out and raise your own money, or you get money from people that are not so connected with what it is that you're doing, and they give you money, and then that puts you in a position, if you got some business acumen, to be able to research and the talents to move on. See, most of the young guys that are coming up in the industry now, they are specialists in what they do. So they're kind of taken away from the table of creativity and being producers to do their own thing. That's a bad spot to be in, because that means how do you're waiting for, I hate to say it like this, but you're waiting for the enemy to give you animation to shoot at him.
No, you're right. You're right. That's like the con to the pro, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oof. And that's the reality. People don't like to hear that. But I've been out here, and next month on the 10th, if I make it, I'll be 80 years old. But I've been in my craft.
Birthday twin!
You that same date, September 10th?
September 10th.
Oh, wow.
I knew that was
a few decades after.
Destiny, right? This is destiny right here.
A Virgo. Okay, a Virgo. All right. So unless you do that, some people will break out of the pack and go on and do their own things. And I think that's fantastic. But as a landing force hitting the beach, there's going to be a lot of casualties.
Bars. That was a good quote right there. That's a good quote. That's real. No, that's real. So you don't have like any folks, like your go-to folks to work with? Like if you're working on a project, there's nobody that comes to mind like, okay, I need to call these people.
Yes. Right now I'm in the process of, excuse me, I gotta get over here. Yes, I'm reaching out to a lot of young guys that do modeling, and that's what you do, isn't it?
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. Both of us.
I want my characters modeled. Yep. do you have time to do that, or are you too busy with the man?
We gotta talk offline because we can get something going.
Okay. All right.
When it comes to the OGs, man, I'm gonna answer the call for real. You know what I mean?
So anyway, yes, I'm working with some young guys to give that new look, or that new, what do you guys call it? I guess cool is out now. What's the new word now?
What we got? What we got?
Hip is out too. I don't know all the new. You guys change the names every Friday, so I can't keep up.
You know,
See,
here's my
after I graduated college, I was like, can y'all just speak? I get it now. I'll be like, can y'all just speak English? Because
here's my thing. See, I'm in my 40s, right? Which is still young to you, Mr. Sullivan, but I'm in my 40s, right? And I always say, whatever lingo you speak, that's what you speak. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to speak what the youngins are saying nowadays. I got my own lingo. I got my own swag, and that's it. So however you want to say it, you know, handle your business.
When I'm talking to people, because I said, what the hell are they talking about? And I find out what they're talking about is what I learned 35 years ago. They just call it a new name.
Yes, new name. You got wet. You got wet. Weight. What else is there? Lit. You got litty. You know, there's different. But I say stick with the lingo that you came up with. If you want to say hip, I'm cool with that. You know.
My dad always calls me thigh because I'm not hip.
Okay, I gotta remember that.
See, that works. It's in how you deliver it, right? It's in how you, if you cool, when you deliver it, it's gonna sound cool.
Well,
you know
see, the young guys these days are doing what I call the new swag. There was swag in our day, but now the swag is amplified by access to the technology, access to learning, knowing a little bit, or having a different kind of skill than what somebody else has. And the guy says, "Well, I can model really good, or I can animate the models, but I can't rig, or I can do this." Or I don't forget about 4 or 5 years ago when Flash. Remember when Flash came out?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Back in the day.
Yeah. So I was going around. Hey, you need an animator? You know Flash? I said, no. Nah, we don't need you. Years later, they were looking for. Flash looked the way it looked. They were looking for experienced animators to work for them. And I said, no. I'm going to do my own thing. Good,
That's
bad,
right.
Good, bad, or indifferent. I do my own thing, so I don't have to answer to anybody. I really resent that answer to anybody. I mean, I'm at the age now, I can't go into an office and sit down and make a little pimply-faced guy looking at me, a producer, talking to me. Well, here's what we do here. I said, then, well, first of all, I'm embarrassed myself by walking in. That's number one. So I put myself in the grips of the evil master.
Well, when we get our thing going, it ain't gonna be like that when you walk in. When you walk in, it's gonna be a party. That's how we gonna do it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm still out here. What are you laughing at?
I was. It's a party.
Yeah.
I was dancing.
We're gonna be dancing. Yeah, we're gonna be kicking it. I said party, and then Deborah responded. She got the swaying.
Basically, if you want to jump out there, really analyze that, because the worst thing to do is when you jump out there and you have to come back.
Yeah, no doubt.
So
with your tail between your legs.
Yeah, you got to come back with all 6 guns blazing, because for you to have worth, because they'll remember that you didn't comply. You weren't the slave they thought you were.
It's funny. I always tell people at my job when I got into the industry in 2006, and I said, let me tell you something. When you see me, remember you seeing a brother just like them brothers you see on the news. You want me to have a job, because if I can't feed my family, I'm taking from y'all.
That's right. That's
and
right.
that's it. So you can square that however you got to square that. But just remember that you want me in this building working and chilling and paying my bills and feed my family.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
what's going on now in the country? I think a lot of the young people, for the first time, kind of got somewhat of a wake up call
Oh yeah.
of where they actually are. So they thought that people like me had cleared the road for them and Martin Luther King, but we were just the guys who hit the beach after the first wave of soldiers and Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are in the next LST that's going to land. It's behind us. You got to fight the battle too. But
Yeah.
hopefully,
And it's
yeah, that we've given you ground to stand to be able to fight. But you got to
We had
realize
to wake people up first to make y'all proud. They was asleep.
yeah, they were.
that's what's
They
happening
was sleeping
now.
comfortably.
Yeah, they were sleeping comfortably. And all of a sudden, they have no bank accounts. They live on credit cards. They don't plan for the future. They're not entrepreneurial. They don't know how to collectively come together and formulate their own coalitions to upgrade themselves. And and the one thing that young people don't think about, that's getting old.
Mm.
Yeah, that's real. You only got a certain amount of time.
We got a certain amount of time. And so like if I'm almost 80, every day is a blessing from now on.
Real talk.
When you're 30 or 40, that's not an issue.
That reminds me of when I was living in South Korea and I went whitewater. Well, I don't know if it was whitewater rafting. We went rafting, and the first couple divots we went over, our boat flipped over, and so it flipped over twice. And so after that, every time we went down a divot, everybody clapped like, yeah. And so that's like, I guess that's getting old. Like every year, yes.
That's right. That's right.
Every day is a blessing.
Now it gets worse.
Yeah, every year, every day.
Yeah.
Real talk. That's where I'm at. I'm counting the day. I'm like, hey, every day is a blessing, man.
The time will come when you open your eyes in the morning, you say, I made it again.
I already feel my back when I'm getting out the bed. I'm moving slow, like ooh, you know what I mean. So yeah, I feel it. I ain't as swift as I was, you know.
So my message out to the young guys and young ladies, watch your step. Oh, that's my phone here.
I got sunshine.
Yeah. I come from another era.
Hey, that's a that song is timeless though. Come on now.
That's right. So anyway, my sermon here is that for the young people to be able to count those days and use them to your advantage to get out there. This window that we're in right now is going to be short-lived.
Yeah, take
It's going to
advantage
be
of
closed.
Ice Cube said the same exact thing on his IG. He said the same thing. We have a window right now. It's going to be short.
Yeah. So if we come together in how we do that in this window, support Black businesses, spend the dollars in the Black community, give them something so they can go. An example: we have a crowdfunding thing that's happening, and some other thing. We're trying to get subscribers to our little labeling the website and everything and all that. And as a way to hire people like you, Dre, or you, BlkWmn Animator.
They're gonna start knowing you by that. You gonna be beat up. BWA.
So the people that can support that, they don't have to be animators or directors or have that passion, but they can support it in order for somebody like me that has platforms and everything to give guys like you an opportunity to be able to spread your talents and experiment. Because with me, you can experiment whatever, and you don't get fired the next day. The biggest thing you'll get fired from me is if you don't deliver.
Right.
Yeah,
And so
that's
let's
real.
segue that message and your ringtone into talking about Leo. What is it? Leo Sullivan Multimedia Foundation. So I saw in one interview you referred to it as the Motown of animation, and being from Detroit, I'm down with that. So can you talk a little about what is the purpose of Leo Sullivan Multimedia Foundation, and why did you start Afro Kids?
Okay, that's two questions. But anyway, we did the foundation because the foundation concentrates on media. In other words, to train kids in game development. Uh, what do you call it? Any robotics or anything like that. And we're giving these classes and getting sponsorship from sponsors and people contributing money and to train kids or introduce them. Basically, our age bracket was to introduce kids to those disciplines so they can make that choice. A lot of them, that ain't what I want to do. And but some say, hey, that's great. I didn't know anything like this happened. It's like when I would tell the kids, you're playing this game here. Have you ever thought that everything that you do has been pre-planned by somebody? Somebody thought of everything you're going to think of as you play this game. That means that's a job. And then I would break down all the jobs that related to that. And they were blown away. So in some of those things that we would offer in our courses, we had people come down from Pixar and Disney and myself and other teachers that had disciplines about illustration and all that to teach classes. And with the support of people giving donations or being a Patreon and everything helps reach out to those kids to advance themselves. And then we always say, as a carrot at the end of that, we say, all those that may go on with their careers in high school and taking art or whatever, and or do projects that have some merit to it, they got a place to put it on. Afro Kids, our streaming channels, we have Afro Kids TV, we have Afro Kids on Roku, Amazon, and all that sort of thing, in a limited way. But as we get more revenue coming in and people supporting what it is we do, we can offer more to the community, to young artists who are just looking for a door to walk in and a place where they can say, hey, I'm a part of something, so they can advance their own agenda. See, my thing is, I'm basically retired. And everything I do, I'm doing it when I'm talking about making money. It's not necessarily to be rich. It's to pass on to the next generation, for them to have the opportunity, the same opportunity that I've had. I've worked in my craft those 60 years. Think about that. I've been able to do what I want to do and what I like to do for over 60 years. I want to give that, share that with somebody coming up.
Beautiful thing, man. We lucky that we got folks like that in the community, in this space of animation. Because getting in animation, I didn't think I'd be having conversations like this when I first got into the industry. I just thought, I'm gonna do my thing and make cool stuff, and hopefully I can help somebody that's going to come in after me. But thinking that I'd be having a conversation with OGs such as yourself, yeah, it does. It triggers something in you. Your passion gets a little bit more hotter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean, because basically that's me. I'm doing what I want to do, basically under my terms. And then there are obstacles. It's constant obstacles. The biggest obstacle I have is the quote Black community.
Well, speak on that. Wait a minute. We need some details on that. Whoa, break that down.
Now cover up your ears.
I want all this. I want all of it. right here into
the new slang is he want all the smoke.
All of it. I want all of it.
Our children are being mentally taken over by the media.
Real talk.
The people who are doing that have an agenda to destruct the Black family. And because most of the young people in that age range, from say about 18, I would go as high as about going into the 50s, early say 50. Most of them that I've met don't have they separate certain things that really applies, all those things apply to them. Family, raising children, developing those children's minds to be productive citizens, and giving them a pathway to their future. They have, self-esteem, self-awareness, education. And they're not getting that. Their idols are Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi Blue, and all those guys. And advertising that plucks their brains, or TV shows that with violence and derogatory things and racism and so their minds are occupied in a state that distracts from their growth. So you have 10-year-olds and 8-year-olds, they can't pay attention to something that helps them advance. And then most of them have parents. They can't even relate to the kids. We have found that out during this pandemic with people locked up with their kids. They're in terrific fear because they're saying things like, I don't got time to be at home with these children. So now, which is very interesting, and it's sad, but it's kind of interesting, and it kind of brings a smile on my face. Now they got to deal with sending them back to school. That's another thing that's been put on the plate. Now they're not working because of the pandemic. They have to stay at home, so they can't do that. They got to be with the children, and now the children can go back to school. I know that's going to go down. They're not going to go back to school for this quarter. So they got to do something to build up their children and give the children the time of day. And a lot of them don't have that responsibility, or have they taken the responsibility to do that? And I can say that because of my age. My kids are in their mid-50s.
Damn, that's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
So
I feel like in addition to that, like they, parents tend to want other people or TV to raise their children. So if you think about when Sesame Street made Cookie Monster eat vegetables, it's like, right. Why don't you just teach your children to not eat cookies? Cookie Monster isn't like, I grew up on Cookie Monster. I didn't ravenously eat cookies. I tried to eat vegetables. I had a thing with vegetables, but it wasn't because of Cookie Monster. So like people are regulating these things instead of raising their children themselves.
I ate my vegetables because my mama said she'll whoop my ass if I don't clean that plate.
And that's pretty much what mine said.
You better clean that damn plate, boy.
That's
you know what I mean?
You used to hear that all the time. Now, to answer that question, address that problem, that's where the responsibility that the parents have to go to. And when I started the Afro Kids and what I'm doing, it's just to give them a place to start from. There are other people who have other kinds of at-home schooling or things like that that people have to expose their kids to that. They got to take out the time. Everybody's after the bling. Everybody wants to be popular. Everybody wants likes and followers and all that, And when you go through your list of followers, you really only have one or two friends, and maybe just one true friend. Everybody else are just what they are. They're followers when they remember your name.
Real talk.
And then, if you think about them taking cursive out of the schools and like all the parents complaining, I was like, You do know you could teach your own child cursive. That's how I learned cursive. I didn't learn cursive in school. I wanted to write like my mom,
You
so I
know,
asked her to teach me how to write in cursive.
I also
No,
think another factor is that some people, a lot of people know what they're teaching, but very few people know how to teach what they know. A lot of adults don't have skills in how to convey information to somebody else in a way that they can digest it and replicate. And I think that should be something that's taught to a lot of parents. We should have classes on how to teach, you know?
well, you know something, in my day, they used to call it mother wit. Just do the things that are what you consider right. In other words, you don't take your kid to school and drop them off and then come back and let the system, the systemic thing, control their minds. And then when you come and pick them up and you don't ask them how they're doing in school, you don't
Mm-hmm.
ask them how they feel, you don't ask them. You tell them to shut up, go sit in the corner, do that, do this, do that. And you don't hear what they have to say. You forget that they're little human beings that will grow up, and you hope they don't grow up to be like you if you're the way that,
Man, yeah,
you
real
know what I
talk,
mean?
real talk.
So, and that's the reality. And young people that don't know that, and they run away from it. Do you realize that here in the city of Los Angeles, or what city, the California schools, in the quote brown and black communities, especially the black, you have 15, 16, 18-year-old kids reading level of a third grader. How can a parent not know that?
Mm.
Yet those kids can remember every lyric of a rap song. I remember when we were selling a book called a graphic novel that's featured on our site about the Tuskegee Airmen, and we said, well, let's do it in a graphic novel type story presentation so they can get the education as well as kind of get an anime look to the book. And we would go to these little gatherings, etc., where they have the vendors and everything, and people wouldn't buy it. They would ask the kid, "You want this?" They say no, and I would look at the parent and say, "You don't ask the kid whether he wants it or not. You you buy
Yep,
it and tell his ass or whatever he's got to read it so he can learn something."
pretty
But
much.
they don't do that. The kids rule the house. Those that
Mm-hmm.
do have a chance, and there's some kids that just kind of sit up and don't say anything. Wait until they can get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Or wait till they grow up, and then they build up. All during that period, they built up a lot of hate and inner feelings of low self-esteem, and they think they can get that by having the swag and the
Mm-hmm.
and the and the and all those things that have particularly no value to them, and they buy.
All surface, no substance.
That's pretty much. And
Also, yeah,
everybody looks, especially in our community, everybody looks the other way and doesn't look. They say, "Isn't my kid smart because he knows how to use the computer?" Because maybe the parents at age where they don't know how to use it. Well, the answer to
Mm-hmm.
that is no, your kid ain't smart. Ask him, like, what's the capital of Wisconsin? What's the
Mm-hmm.
capital of Florida or Texas or whatever? Who's the president of the United States?
I'm definitely bad with geography. I'll put that out there right now.
But I go back to being in eighth grade and in my 20s, just thinking back to my childhood and being like, why was I reading Native Son in eighth grade? Because my father gave it to me and told me to read it. It's like,
That's right.
That's what's up.
But now, see, that's not done. Parents
mm-hmm.
are taking a back seat to raising their children. And I didn't know that till I started Afro Kids. But I've stayed the course because I think during this window of opportunity, a few people, what do you guys say now?
Yep.
Woke up and get the message. When they look at that little thing they brought into the world that took about 3 minutes and a lifetime to be able to say, you know, you are important to me and I should look out to your welfare. and give you the loving guidance that you need to become a productive person and have your own self-worth.
I think that's why it's
So-
important that we got people like you, Mr. Sullivan,
Hey,
so we can
boys
stay
and
we can
girls,
stay connected.
I can't carry the whole burden.
No, I mean, as far as going
we
back
help you out.
yeah, I'm talking about as far as going back and talking to people like yourself is gonna help us kind of
Carry the torch.
recalibrate what we're doing, and then to carry the torch.
Can you talk about the mentality that is important as Black artists as we're trying to build, companies, brands, and more, such as it being a marathon and not a sprint? Because that's another thing about people in my generation and below, where all this media is in 10 seconds. And so we're so used to instant gratification and the microwave version of things, but you have to
I'll
be
be
in
right
it for
back,
the long
peoples.
game. Okay.
The problem is that people want to have what do you call it? That instant gratification constantly,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a kind of a trap that they put themselves in, and they don't really realize. How you change that is probably through some kind of educational thing of making them aware of it. But they fight that because that means they got to go another direction that isn't so popular. They got to go in that direction. See, it's hard to go up against a man because he controls a lot of dynamics that affects your decision making, and that's a lot of people don't have those skills, or understand the dynamics of what's happening, and how they're what I call the modern day mental slaves.
Yeah. So, a lot of times Black artists fail independently because they don't know the business side of things, as you mentioned earlier. What are a few tips you can give Black artists to what they need to learn to be independently successful? Whether they need to look it up, what do they need to research and look up to be successful on the business side, not just the artistic side?
Try to sell your artwork. Try to sell what you do and see who's willing to buy it. How many doors are closed in your face? How many people say, hey, I like that? A lot of people that pat you on the head and give you all kind of nice statements. Hey, you're great. You're a great artist. But they don't give you no check or any money or to support what it is that you're doing. So you got to create value. And usually you have to do that on your own. And that research, put yourself out there. Sometimes I even have trouble doing that at my age with all my legacy and everything, because that's hard work. That's real hard work. And then how much confidence do you have in yourself? Well, I have a lot of confidence in myself. But now when you do that, that's another job. You got to be a job as an artist, a job as a businessman, a job as a creator, and then fight all the dynamics that against you as well as those that are for you. So a lot of people don't want to go that route. It's nice to sit over in the corner, do your quota, and have that eagle fly on Friday, as we used to say, and take that home and see how far you can stretch it.
So also, you've taught at the Art Institute of California, Orange County,
Yep.
and have hosted various workshops for kids. So what do you like about teaching and passing on that knowledge?
Well, the thing about teaching is I have a big thing about that, because I wasn't a very good teacher, because I'm kind of one of those guys, I won't say guys, I say teacher. If you don't get it, I don't have time for you.
Damn. Whew. I didn't hear the rest of it, but I got it on the tail end and vicious.
So that was a simple and purpose. And I know there's basically three ways that people learn: hands-on, cognitive, and what's the other one? Just let them read what it is they got to do, and they go do it. And I don't have the patience time to do that or have the skill. So I hire people to do certain things that I'm not well at, that I can't do. I just become the what do you call it, the coach. Hey, get in there, yeah. Hey, go say this. Hey, do that. Or if I really get PO'd, then I'll step in and give them the old Leo Sullivan lecture. But otherwise,
I'm sure that's worth a lot, though. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of gems in that lecture. So,
well, you're talking about the Art Institute because I talked the truth. They didn't like that. Now, to tell the students, I would say, look, there's 20 of you in each of these classes, and there's maybe 20 classes going on, and that's at this school. And I said, this particular franchise with Art Institute had, I think at the time, 50 schools across the country. And then their competitors had their schools that had 20 and 30 in their affiliation programs. Then you had the colleges. Then you have the one-off schools that were teaching the same kind of curriculum. And I said, and they're putting out people every day into the streets that are graduating. And I said, that's going to be your competition.
which is a lot. That's a whole lot. Those numbers don't work in your favor.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I says, DreamWorks at the time, I'd say DreamWorks, Disney's, and all those companies, they can only hire so many people.
Yep.
So where do you fit? I remember going to a reunion, if you're going to call it that, of a bunch of artists that one of the teachers that brought me into the Art Institute had, with all the students that she had in her class who didn't get, at that time, couldn't get jobs. There must have been about 30 or 40 of them or something. The only ones that got the jobs were the primo people, the people that were just at the top of their game in what they did. And they went out into the industry and they just moved up the what do you call it? The
corporate ladder.
Yeah. Or the craft, doing what they do.
Mm-hmm. I actually spoke. I went to the Art Institute in San Francisco, and I went back to speak one time. And yeah, they didn't have me back after that. Because I kind of told them the same thing. I said, here's the reality of being in the field and working, and the teacher, the instructor that was there in that class where I was speaking, because I brought another OG, right? Because I'm one of the people that listen to the OGs. I respect the OGs because the OGs are going to give you are going to show you how to last, right? They're going to give you information that's going to allow you to have a career that spans 50 years, right?
Yeah.
So when they asked me to come speak, I brought one of the OGs that kind of mentored me. I said, you need to talk to this person. Talking to me is whatever. You need to talk to this guy. But after our talk, the instructor in that class, he tried to kind of give a rebuttal to what we were saying. And I said, listen, I don't mean no disrespect, but I'm working. He's here teaching. He's not working.
Boy, when you say that, they get pissed.
So, yeah. And I said, so I don't mean any disrespect. I'm saying you can listen to him or you can listen to this OG over here that's got 20 years in the game. It's up to you. So I didn't go back after that. They didn't invite me back to speak after that.
That's pretty much kind of what I went through. And then it's because what they're interested in was making money.
Yeah.
The kids, just like the school systems now, how many kids can we get to sit in that seat so we can get money from the government? It's not about what the kids learn. And so that's destructive to the kids because they're wasting the best years of their lives.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because I have some people reach out to me and they're like, sometimes I just graduated from college and I'm like, oh, let me see your work. And I'm like, that's what a college graduate's work looks like? Like, oh, okay.
Yep, that's it. So anyway, that's kind of like the teaching aspect. And I don't want to sound like I'm a negative old guy who's sitting here saying there's no hope. there's plenty of hope. There's more hope now.
Mm-hmm.
What was it I said at one of my interviews? I said, hey, listen, the animation industry now for Black people, what's great about it now, there's enough of us to even get mad at each other. That's great. In my day, there wasn't enough of us to get mad at each other. So I said, so that means that's progress. So when I see all these young brown faces pop up, and I say, gee whiz, what can I say?
So speaking of getting mad at each other, something in the Black community that people comment on is all of these movies and TV shows coming out that highlight our Black trauma, but not always talking about Black joy. So do you have any thoughts on, one, incorporating the importance of incorporating our culture into projects when given the opportunity? And then, like, do you have any thoughts on all this content on, Black trauma? Like when I saw See You Yesterday on Netflix, and that was it wasn't directed by Spike Lee, but I think it was produced by Spike Lee. And I remember being excited that it was like these Black kids are going back in time, but then she was going back in time to save her brother from getting shot by the police. And it was just like, why does our storylines have to be connected to that? So do you have any comments on that or thoughts?
A lot. But I'll tone it down a little bit. That's a part of what I'm talking about when I was talking about the Megan Stallions and all that sort of thing. There's that other element of the minds being manipulated, and you got a lot of the young Black brothers who are trying to do their thing. Everything is dark. Everything is foreboding. Everything is, they don't know it is negative. That's their inner self, or the thing that I talked about, that of how they were raised. You're talking to a young guy who's 21, 22, and everything. That first 6 years was a certain part of the development of what he saw and what he or she was learning. And by the time they're in the 12 or 13 bracket, their mind's kind of made up of how they see life. And then everything else after that is those other experiences segue in from puberty into adulthood. So the Black kids who live in, quote, the hood, or whatever they call it, the community, they are exposed to kind of a different way of life. And I don't want to generalize it. Well, I am generalizing because I know some people are going to come back and say, wow, that's not me. I'm middle class. I'm bourgeois. I'm rich.
I grew up on the lower tier, so I get it.
Yeah. So and I'm used to all that because I realize that everybody's coming from their point of reference and everything. But the bottom line is why those dark images and that dark mindset, it's part of the manipulation that's taking place.
Because those are the stories that get greenlit.
Yeah, they get greenlit because we spend all our time crying, but not doing what we need to elevate ourselves. We complain,
Amen to that.
but we don't we don't cause action. We throw bricks and break windows, but we don't get out and vote. I mean, we don't think about the future and developing wealth. We live for the moment because we can buy some $500 shoes.
We do need the OGs to speak honest though, because that again, that'll kind of snap us back into where we need to be.
That's right.
So, and all that stuff also goes into lack of education because, through my work in the National Urban League movement of, trying to get people to vote, you realize that people don't vote because they don't realize how it's connected to their lives. So you have to educate people on the presidency. While it's an important place to vote, you need to vote in your local elections and your state elections because that more directly connects to how you live. Like, absolutely. If you vote for this judge who in this circuit court who determines whether your sister gets her domestic violence case dealt with. Like that's all the stuff that's interconnected, but it's a lack of knowledge of not knowing how voting locally particularly is connected to your life.
Yes, that really is the crux of everything, is ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In our community,
Absolutely.
it's ignorance, unawareness, what we're given to put on it. So therefore, people, how can I put it? You know when you don't know something.
I think
And
a lot of
sometimes-
times people don't know what they don't know, you know, and then and since
Sometimes
we
people
don't,
know they don't know and don't look to find out to know.
but I think also since we don't talk, we don't have constant communication between one another. Then you know things can easily get lost or things can easily get misconstrued. As far as like me going to talk to my earlier self, my younger self, I know I'm gonna have to come with all type of tricks and gags and whatnot to kind of get that person to come into the room and sit down and be still. You know what I mean? And because I'm very different now than what I was, you know, when I was 16, 17. Hopefully everybody changes, you know, that much over time. But a lot of people just, they don't have, when I was growing up, like I didn't have those people in my vicinity that I can, you know, I can poke, or more importantly, they poke me like, hey, you need to come and holler at me. I didn't have a lot of those folks in my vicinity, and the ones that were there didn't look like me, right? And they weren't about to spend any time on me. I was the troublemaker, and I was the person that wasn't going to succeed or whatever. So you know, they didn't spend any time on me, and they figured that you know, I was a waste of their effort. Yeah, I was a waste of their efforts. Yeah, I was a lost cause. You know what I mean? So that's why it's so important for us to kind of keep those constant lines of communication open. So we can't, because a lot of people really don't know, like what Deborah was saying, they really don't understand the ramifications of something as simple as voting or not voting. Like they don't get it. And I didn't when I was growing up. I didn't, not at all. Now I do, and I say to myself, I wish I could whoop my young self's ass. You know.
Yeah, I know. It's like when James Brown had the song out years ago, "I'm Black and I'm Proud," and then the other one he says. Just open up the door, I'll get it myself.
Yeah, man. That's
nowadays, real. What do you hear? I want, here's my hand. Give me something. Give me something. Give me something. Give me. And that's kind of an attitude that's been a holdover from slavery. People say, like I found that like a lot of the young people, they don't want to hear about slavery, but slavery was the basis of who we are today, and they got to know their history to know where they're going. If they knew their history, they would vote.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Because even with the black codes, you know, me and Dre have talked about this, where when you're at a company and three or more black people are congregated, back in the day, there was a rule that 3 or more black people could not congregate. And so it's like kind of subconsciously passed down to the white people, and so when they see it, they look at it as suspicious. No matter if you're dressed in business casual, business. I remember standing outside of my supervisor's office talking to 3 other black women, and one of my white coworkers coming by and saying, "Oh, what mischievous things are you doing? We're talking about work. What are you even saying?"
Yeah.
So if you know your history, you can know the context of how people are treating you today.
And you can start to see the signs. Like as a small thing, when you see the signs, you can kind of, you know, stop it there and not let it grow into something bigger. You know, that same code is used in San Quentin State Prison, where only all the other groups are fine. Black folks have to walk in 2s. That's it. It is something that the correctional officers there, they make sure that is followed by all the black folks in San Quentin. You can only walk.
And that's
2s.
another thing, that the transportation of prison culture into our schools, where our being on a board for a charter school board in New Orleans, and the way they have the broken window policy or the 0 tolerance policy in schools. You have to raise your hand at a 90-degree angle. You have to walk on these lines. You're preparing our children for prison.
Yep, pretty much. And I can vouch for that because it's just like that in there. It's just like that. Yep.
Well, I could talk about that for another hour.
Well,
We have to have like episodes 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. But the thing is, that's all a part of the mental control.
Mhm.
And then when you fall for it, and sometimes you're put in a position, especially the black people in the community. I would say this as a shout out. Is that the new? Is that still in?
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Sending a shout out. Yep.
The shout out is that when you feel deep down inside or mentally, you all of a sudden got this awareness that you are being manipulated.
Mhm.
It's time to do something about it.
Real talk.
And if you think everything is cool, brothers and sisters, it ain't.
He was gonna say it ain't.
It ain't.
So what advice do you have to young artists in being authentic, being proud who they are, and walking with that confidence as they navigate life and as they navigate the animation industry like you've done? I'm guessing it's just do it yourself.
What? What was that?
I'm saying I'm guessing it's just do it yourself.
Yep.
to keep that confidence intact.
You know, that's an individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
I could say something that could be collectively applied to everybody. But when it all boils down, it's an individual thing. Think about it like this. When you're out in the public, you're acting one way. When you go home and you're what do they call it? When you go home, let's see.
When you
can be yourself.
In the privacy of your home.
Yeah, you can be yourself. You can be who you really are. And most black people have to play Jekyll and Hyde. In other words, they got to be what they are on the job and who they are when around their friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then people that look like them. And then even then you got to test that because you may be talking one thing and that's your same color. He ain't there with you or you're not there with him.
Yep.
So that's an obstacle because, and that's just a reality.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what I can say about to that question is that it depends on each individual has to meet pursue their own Waterloo, if you want to call it that. For the kids, people that don't know what that means, you got to kind of like control as much as your own destiny as you can.
Yeah.
To achieve those goals and to be accepted. Whether
me and Dre were talking about that the other day.
Huh?
Real talk.
Me and Dre were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, we were talking about that very same thing.
Because if you don't, you're letting other people make that decision for you. That's why our minds have been taken over by certain aspects of the media, where they know that you're in that state of mind because they have psychologists. Just like we're sitting here talking, there's psychologists sit around the table all day in these various corporate offices and everything, and plot and do things to set up the deck. So when you sit down at the table, you say, I thought it's supposed to be 52 cards.
Right.
Right.
I was just thinking that.
Isn't there some cards missing?
Or they got some extra aces in their hand.
Yeah, that's right.
I always say we're playing chess and we start with fewer pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So to be aware of that, now you don't have to be hostile in your reactions and all that. You just have to the biggest thing is, I remember when I was running certain studios or working in certain studios, they said, why did you always keep that box on the shelf and next to your desk? And I said, I never know when they're going to come in and say, I'm out of here. So I want to have something to put my shit in so I can get out as fast as I can.
Mr. Sullivan stayed on his shit. I like that. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, right?
I was kind of like a silent maverick. I never had an argument with anybody, any shouting matches or anything and everything. There were people that probably didn't like me because of how they perceived me or whatever. But I felt true to myself, and and I had to make a lot of compromises because I was raising a family. I had 2 kids and
Mm-hmm.
loving wife and all that, and loving kids. So there were times when I had to bite the bullet and walk that white line
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and try not to stumble.
Yeah.
Yeah, with all them obstacles in the way too.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So, what do you hope Black animators do in this current landscape that you wish you would have done, particularly with the technology and just the access we have these days to YouTube? What do you hope Black animators, young Black animators, are doing right now?
I would hope that you do your own thing if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Have the wherewithal to make it happen. Because even doing that, yes, there's more opportunity in technology and everything, but then there's other people doing the same thing that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I have people call me up and they say, I want to see all your content so I can see what I can pick out of to use. And I started laughing. And I said, you got the right number?
Huh. Real talk. They better recognize who they talking to.
They want to take a shortcut.
Yeah.
I haven't had any shortcuts.
Mm.
Yeah, so you ain't having any, you ain't giving any.
No way.
That's right.
No way. If you're going to work with me, you got to give something to me, and I give something back.
Mm-hmm.
That can either be money, services, or just. I have another thing I say to young people, which they really don't understand. I says, everything I tell you, and you pick up on it, I can't take it back. So you have it,
Mm.
and that's value to you.
Yep. Absolutely.
So write me a check.
Well, they say youth is wasted on the young.
That's real.
Well, I don't want the people taking up my time for all of their missteps.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to. My time has value to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm giving somebody time and they're not interested, or they don't have the wherewithal to follow through, I should be giving that time to somebody else who does.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I tell to young people who reach out to me. When I take my time to give you advice, take it, and don't come back to me and then tell me that you didn't take my advice because I feel like I wasted my time.
That's
So,
right. So you have to be careful with that. And the young people, they in these times they want a shortcut to go through the steps. That takes time, energy, a mental state,
Whole lot of failures that you got to get over.
Finances, and I don't know why they don't think they have the time, especially if they're 20 years old or 30 years old.
you got plenty of time.
Yeah, real talk.
So, if there was a documentary about your life, what other than animation would you like highlighted in the documentary?
What a great guy I was.
Yeah, that's right, OG. That's where you got to be your own biggest fan. Got to be your own biggest fan. That's right.
That I gave him my best.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I say this. I say, what I want on my gravestone. I say, I gave it my best shot, or or something real like Gone with the Wind. You have about 5 or 20 headstones around your grave, giving the whole story. I don't know, but basically, the answer to the question is that I just want people to understand that are coming up to be able to say, "Hey, this guy did whatever he did in contributing.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that."
Mm-hmm.
I was watching a thing on Obama, and maybe you've seen it. It's like a little promo. I guess they're gonna use it during the election as a promo for Biden or whatever advertising, and it shows all these different Obama and Michelle with all these different kids. I don't know if you've seen that, and it's so great to see the little, especially not only the white kids and Asian kids, but to see the little black kids looking up at Obama with their big eyes and shaking his hand and just those looks are just precious.
Yeah.
It brings me to tears because it's like that's the next generation. And here he was at the time when he was the president, that they were speaking to a man in the White House who looked like them.
Yeah.
And that's
No
really
doubt.
the basis when we talk about, what do you guys call it? Black women in animation or black animators and everything. What you're really saying is, who are we as black people and what are we going to contribute in our time doing
Right.
what we do?
Those are two heavy ass questions too.
That's right. That's right. And so that thing that you spoke about earlier about the darkness of what the black guys do, they want to do superheroes. They want to be powerful. They want to be a part of the system. All of that's fine, but I know it's tough to get a 43-year-old or 20-year-old black guy these days with all his hormones going to draw little bunny rabbits. You know what I mean? They just ain't gonna draw no bunny rabbit or some kind of character that has some kind of redeeming value, even though they may not be black. Why we stress the black
Or
thing?
expressing that vulnerability.
Yes, yeah. So we stress the black thing for all you other general population out there, is that's just a seat at the table. If you don't give us a seat, or here's that word give, we got to take a seat. Or we don't even want to come to the meeting.
Yeah, we could build our own table, make our own seats.
That's right.
Yeah. There's more than enough of us. There's more than enough of us. There's more than 6 now, Mr. Sullivan. You know what I mean? There's more than 6 now.
That's right. That's right.
There might be like 66 now.
And I'm highlighting them all.
That's right.
Can you imagine? It would take somebody with a lot of guts to do that. If the black creators in some kind of way would say, you know something, these people aren't going to let us in and give us a piece of the action. I'm not talking about a job. I'm talking about a piece of the action.
Ownership.
And they say, you know what? There's a diaspora around the world that would like to have what we have.
Definitely.
Yep.
Why don't we put our heads together and go for that? And as they see what we're doing, they'll join. And that coalition around, from Brazil to Africa, the various places and continents, countries in Africa and in the UK and Brazil and everything, that's a lot of people.
Yep.
That's right.
That are brown. They come in all different colors of brown. So
yeah,
just think if we had a connection and a pipeline that fed that audience, whether it's something from Nigeria, South Africa, Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, the UK, or the US, a place where we could do our thing and we had that support of the people around the world, that would create a lot of jobs within the black animation community.
True.
So, Mr. Sullivan, I love that you came on my platform to let me highlight you. You are an important person in the black animation history. Can you let the people know how to support you? I know you have a bunch of merchandise on afrokids.com and premiere content by subscription on AfroKids TV, but how can we support you?
Be a subscriber. When we open up our Patreon account, be a patron. Maybe you don't want to be a subscriber. Be a patron that sends money in. If you want to donate to the foundation, donate to the foundation. Then we can pay teachers to come in and teach the next generation coming up to have the skills to be able to compete in this new society, technological society that's being developed. They got to invest in their own community and support the people who are trying to do things.
Yeah.
You know, here's what I think is very interesting. How can we be really competitors with each other when the general, I gotta put it politely, the general, let's say general, won't let us into the club.
Mm-hmm.
You talking about them gray folks. I got you.
You understand what I'm saying?
We're trying to get in the club to have a dance battle. We can't even get in because we got fitted hats.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they want to check our attire and have a dress code for us. Yeah, exactly.
So the thing is that's the real thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it ain't easy.
Yeah.
Because it might be a coalition of a bunch of little entities
Mm-hmm.
that maybe develops a network or whatever that people can tap into. Because see, everybody says we're going to get advertising if we do something. Not necessarily, but just think if you had 20 million or 50 million
Mm-hmm.
people that are buying into what it is you're doing of color.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you could impact those big companies like I won't name them, but you could impact them by saying that our people are spending money with us first before they come to you. That's what the man understands. And then he will open up the doors. Because if he closes them anymore, he doesn't leave us any choice. At least now he's got something to negotiate with.
Mm-hmm.
Till we take that path.
Well, thank you for dropping gems. Thank you, Dre, for joining me on this interview. And for
Most
you
deaf.
out there, like so I know it's real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to Seal the Deal, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Where's my check?
I'm leaving that in.